So for round one of these top cut, or rather semifinals, since there's only top four, it's gonna be our undefeated Lucian versus our Sivir. That is what we have for today. And let's get it. Let's go ahead and give these guys the green light. It is time, chat. It is time to get our top four cut a whole lot better, or maybe not, depending if you were a Draven fan. But three Dravens and an Annie last week. I think this top cut's looking a little bit better so far. And yeah, we'll join them as we speak.
It's definitely a very different layout, way different field. So I can't say I have tested the Sivir versus Lucian matchup. Have you?
To be perfectly honest, I haven't even tested either of these legends, but I am decently familiar with them. Just to catch up people at home that are newer to this, newer to Spiritforged meta, Lucian reads every equipment that I have on a unit, you give it Assault 1, and that does indeed stack. So on the offense, Lucian might just be the best legend to try to conquer boards. And then Sivir, for those at home, when you recycle a rune, aka when you pay a power for something, you generate a gold
Are going to be a lot stronger, but I mean, putting in work here, making top four, that's pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good indeed. And if we're looking at that trash can from Sivir's side, there's a mind splitter. So we didn't get to see that in our round one when he was featured on the match, or on the featured match rather. So I'm excited to see if that comes into play. But the Kiana pushing forward on Zon Warrens, trying to take care of this treasure hunter. Is there going to be something like a fight or flight? It does not feel good. That is a double deflect unit, and it was indeed the fight or flight, but it's going to come at a hefty cost. You got to pay one for the Kiana and one for the Hex Drinker. You do it on your own treasure hunter, of course. So just getting that token generation with the gold there.
Yeah, it ends up saving your unit so you can attempt to go for a double conquer, plus generating a token, and then guaranteeing the treasure hunter lives for another turn, which means another token. So like I mentioned in the last round, this treasure hunter can sometimes generate like 5+ tokens if it keeps living with fight or flights and such. So it personally, I think it's probably the best card of the next set that's not like a legend or a champion unit.
Yeah, I would maybe comfortably say the best 2-drop in Spiritforged might just go to Treasure Hunter. I could totally agree with that. And probably one of the reasons why Chaos feels so strong in Spiritforged as well. Let's see though, it looks like it's still Lucian's turn, deciding if he wants to try and develop that base just a little bit more, but decides to pass, keeps 3 runes at the ready. It's Sivir's time to see if she wants to push forward. We didn't actually touch too much about the battlefield on the right. Forge of Fluth, I believe is called. When you control this battlefield, all your friendly units get Exhaust Me to attach an equipment to a unit you control. It doesn't have to be the unit you control on that battlefield, but just in general, you can exhaust a unit to attach a gear. So something to keep eyes peeled for. Obviously works a whole lot better with the Lucian legend that capitalized on running so many equipments in that deck, I would imagine.
Well, it is going to be actually tap your legend. So why this works so nicely with Lucian is he doesn't have to rest his legend for anything, right? So it's just free. Whereas with the deck like Sivir or Kaisa or any of these other ones, well, you'd prefer to rest your legend for their own ability, right? As opposed to just paying for a free equip. So it's nice in that it pretty much only benefits him, as a lot
Exactly.
of the most of the equipment decks aren't really super great.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think if Sivir even had any kind of equipment on the round we saw her. But bringing out the champion, I believe Sivir Mercenary, coming out with the accelerated costs. He paid. No, she's not. She does get the +2. What were the 2 power they paid this turn? It was 1 token. Or they. No, no, no.
I
It was 1 purple. Wait, what was the 2?
I don't see the there's a stack deck. Was there another one below that?
We could take a
Another
look.
card.
No, it was
Yeah,
just
I
a
don't.
stacked deck, so I don't know why he's putting the 2 counters unless we completely missed something, but I know he paid a power to play her. Oh, and the accelerated cost, of course. That's 2 power
Aha.
already. So pushing in with the Sivir Mercenary and the Israel to try to take down this 5 might on Kiana. So you currently have enough, but is there any combat tricks coming out? And ooh la la, the relentless pursuit. We saw it do wonders in that other game we saw from him, and he's doing the classic kind of ride the wind shenanigans. You're conquering on your opponent's turn. You love to see it if you're a Lucian fan, not so much if you're the Sivir player.
Yeah, and this is going to be really value with the Kiana too, right? As you do get the Kiana Conquer trigger, plus then you can retreat it, and then it's totally safe. Ooh, there's a punch first.
Oh, trying to keep. Wait, punch first coming from the Treasure Hunter, so trading evenly. So no conquer. That was actually pretty punishing for Lucian, I will say.
Yeah, that might have been the only punish, to be honest, as Sivir only had 1 rune up. And I guess you do need to think about that kind of thing. It does feel really bad though, because now you do lose the Kiana unit, you lose the Conquer, you lose 2 points from it, right? Because you don't get the hold, and then you also don't get the Conquer.
Mm-hmm.
That was really well played by the Sivir.
Absolutely. And it was a high risk, high reward type pay, but that gamble not paying off in that very moment, and well executed from Sivir, holding up that punch first. I mean, I would imagine the Sivir player wasn't necessarily anticipating that, but did have the tools in hand to kind of not let that go down exactly the way Lucian had pictured it. So now having to start from square one, with the exception being you do have the Hex Drinker on the base. It does give you +1, gives you the deflect, but let's see if there's anything that allows you to push forward. You do have your Lucian champion, which it looks like he might be playing out now. So he does play it out, gets the weapon master, but doesn't get to push it forward because it doesn't have anything like an accelerate. And Sivir just going up, up, and away on these points. 4 points already. I thought Lucian would be more the aggressor in this matchup, but Sivir has the point advantage so far.
I mean, this is the power of these chaos decks, right? Into, I'm not going to say simple, but definitely more simple decks. Like the Lucian deck is going to say, I'm going to swing big, I'm going to make my units big, I'm going to be annoying. Maybe you have like the relentless pursuit, I'm going to be a pseudo ride the wind. But then the chaos decks have so many ways of avoiding the combats, like the fighter flights. A lot of them are playing rebuke. And then Sivir does have the benefit of having like these big buff cards like the punch first, which make it, well, maybe it's not entirely safe to push in with these big ass these big units.
And I got you, man. To make matters worse for the Lucian players, sabotage coming down from Sivir, removing the longsword, one of the best equipments that Lucian has to work with, and it gives him a whole lot of information. It was the wall up, the Kai'Sa, and another Dorian's Blade, or I think a Dorian's Blade in the current hand for Lucian. So decides to push forward onto the right hand battlefield because you know you're relatively safe since everything's tapped out, and you know nothing can really come that's too formidable this following turn. Stack deck gets played out just to see a little bit more options to try to defend, maybe picking up another legendary punch first to try to defend if you need it. But they have so big advantage, and a card we saw in that round one, Rasa, coming down for free 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 instead of 11, pushing forward.
Well, he could attach it. You just have to
Now.
attach the Doran's Blade,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'd attach the Bonjour on this turn. So you'd just be paying 1 energy as opposed to. But oh, there's the Fight or Flight. Like I said, the Chaos deck's so good at saying no. It doesn't matter that your unit is enormous. I don't care. You don't get to attack.
Yeah, and on top of that, you don't get to conquer and ready yourself, but Wallop, it was in hand, so you could use a buff, or remind me, as you, oh no, as an additional cost, you pay a buff, but you could just play it for its usual standard cost of 2, so it does get to ready the Lucian one more time. Is it going to be able to get it conquered this time around, or is there
For this play, then it is a little bit interesting that he chose to go to 7, right? Because you still do
right?
have to conquer both next turn, and leaving the Ezreal on the battlefield just is kind of a free. Maybe he has another Fight or Flight, or maybe he does have like the Rebuke. I would
Yeah,
expect one of them.
let's see if he does, because I don't think Lucian has too many cards. I mean, of course, we are talking about Fury, which is most often associated with those accelerated units like the Kaiser we're seeing here, but pushing forward with a total of 7 might, or actually a little bit more, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 total might coming into the Israel. Does get the conquer, but only up to 2 points. We thought this Lucian deck would be the one spreading the distancing regarding that points, but so far not looking like the aggressor. Sivir with the Fizz in the back, with a Rasa in the base as well. Are they going to be able to close it out this very next turn? What do you think, NA?
This is a really hard position for Lucian. I will say, who does he have? Okay, is he gonna pay for the cost this time? Okay,
Did he pay 1? He paid 3. No, he paid 5. Wait.
I think he missed it again.
I'll tell him this time. Bone is 1 and 1 power. I'll tell him, guys. I'll let him know. Wait, is there a weapon master we're missing? Weapon master.
Big units.
Okay, so I would imagine, I
Oh,
looked away for a second, but I would imagine he played it. Actually, no, he exhausted the legend to
yes.
attach an equipment you control to a unit you control.
Correct.
So that's maybe what he did in the past, and we might have missed it because I know chat's going a little bit crazy about a potential misplay. I totally missed it, but we'll keep our eyes open going forward. But 7 points is what Sivir's currently on. Can she try to close things out? As we mentioned, there's just a single little fizz with 3 might in the base. I don't know if you're closing out this very next turn. I think this might be the moment, NA, that Lucian might have found some footing, might have stabilized, but he does have just a single card in hand, so it's hard to say so.
I mean, that was a pretty good turn for the Lucian, able to find the Yone plus the accelerate for the Yone with the first mate. Essentially allowing him to push up the Yone and then clear the back line, where generally you feel pretty safe against a deck like this that's really combat centric. But Yone being one of the new cards in Spirit that does actually give orange backline access.
Turn.
I wouldn't expect to close out this turn. I would expect him to try and like build up the base a little bit. Um, Essentially set up to win on the following turn, or you could even just set up for 2 turns, as you're not really pressured here to do anything, as the Lucian is what 1, 2, 3 turns away from winning.
Mm-hmm.
Not really close. You can afford to play it a little bit slower, but it looks like that's not what's going to happen here. Opting to use the fizz to then play the punch from the
Oh, is
discard.
that the
Oh my
third
gosh.
one? It wasn't. I was kind of memeing that they would find the third one, but they have gone through a fair amount of cards this game. Plus 10 fizz. That might be the most powerful fizz we've seen in all the Spiritforged meta so far. So going up to 13 should be enough to conquer, but doesn't actually conquer because you're at 7. So just gonna be drawing a card, then the Zone Warren's trigger, just seeing more options, but you only have 3 runes, aka 5 runes on the next turn. So can he kind of do something again? Because he already saw 3 punch first, so they're on the discard. He could maybe have the third fizz, but what is he going to be able to do to get over this Yone? I mean, it's not too crazy. Lucian has 1 card in hand to kind of fight things off, so it's not impossible, but not looking very likely neither.
Yeah, I mean, that was a pretty good turn in that he was able to push off. I am a little bit worried about how this was played, though, as it feels like we've committed really heavily to holding here to 7. But now, as Lucian has found an accelerate, if Lucian is able to then cleanly clear the Worms, which I believe he can, Kai'Sa should be swinging in for, what, 7?
Mm-hmm.
And 7 into 5, and this just says... I want to say Lucian is just in a winning position now, because Sivir had committed so heavily to that play that, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of. Like, there are a lot of cards there that kind of get Lucian out of that position. Like, you have the Relentless Pursuits, you have Wallops, any way that lets Yone move over to the other battlefield,
Mm-hmm.
or just an Accelerate unit clears that. So, I mean, maybe there was a play that they had that I was kind of missing that they were going for, but Yeah, that was a very aggressive play that looks like it might have backfired.
Yeah, it looks like he was just going for the hold to 8 game plan. As you said, it might have just backfired there with that Accelerate Kaiser. If that was a top deck Kaiser, though, that is quite fortuitous for the Lucian player, but that's just how card games go. Before, so Fizz, which is a lonely 3 might and the only unit there. And man, I will say Lucian doing a fantastic job of not getting rattled, being so far behind. Because correct me if I'm wrong, NA, I think it was 7-1 at one point, but that might have been a concession from Sivir because Lucian still had some game to be played, but maybe Sivir had enough there.
I think it was
Or the other
Lucian
way.
conceding.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he just didn't have any way to accelerate a unit onto the battlefield, and Fizz did end up holding. So, no, I feel like it's Rasa, but I can't pretend to be the master of League of Legends lore.
Right, we're just in TCG players here, but and then the other battlefield we've seen to great use as well from units that are mighty. I believe I'll pull it up here after I copy paste this battlefield. Sunken Temple, when a unit conquers this battlefield with the mighty status, meaning if you have 5 might or more, you could pay it energy to draw 1. So it's a little bit more of a draw engine. And with a Kiana with the Dorian's Blade, that definitely puts her into that mighty status condition. So you are able to draw 1 if you choose to conquer, potentially even draw 2 because Kiana's ability as well.
Yeah, it here is kind of acting as a draw engine for the Lucian deck, as it doesn't really seem to have a lot of draw from what we saw. It's like the Kiana and then maybe the Kaisas. And besides that, you're just kind of drawing for turn and drawing for your conquers. So acting similarly to the set deck where the engine itself doesn't really have draw, but we're going to get draw through our battlefields. And
Right.
the Sunken Temple should pretty much always be live for the deck as long as you see a single equipment, which, I mean, it seems like he's playing quite a fair number of equipment. So I would not be surprised if he has an equipment every game.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think back. Does Purple Body have efficient equipment / gear removal? I mean, there's things like fading memories, maybe acceptable losses, but those are just clearing 1 at a time. So nothing like a crazy thermo beam, but we'll see. We'll see how they kind of play around because that would be pretty devastating for Lucian. But it looks like he's trying to go for the double conquer, double draw. Or not double conquer, but conquer, double draw. But the fight or flight coming down, not allowing that to happen this very turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what you're seeing about purple is pretty relevant, I think. Acceptable losses being forcing them to choose. Obviously, if you are playing Lucian, you have a bunch of these gear and you can kind of pick the worst one. Obviously, you're not going to kill your own Bone Shiver. You're going to say, okay, you can have this Thorn's Blade, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which still is fine. I imagine Sivir probably likes the card as it does pay a single power. And paying 1 power gets you 1 gold token, so you do get value out of your legend for kind of the lowest commitment. You can play the Downwell card as well, but I can't imagine. Oh, there's the punch first.
It came in clutch game 1, coming in clutch game 2, allowing them to hold with the Sea Monkey on minefields for that second point. And more importantly, you took down a Kaiser that was paid for by the additional accelerated cost. So it cost Lucian quite a bit to just do that, and all for nothing essentially. Sea Monkey holding tight, getting recalled now, and just going for the develop the base game plan so far, and then passes his turn over. Let's see if Lucian finally gets that conquer double draw he's been craving for this. With 5 good cards in hand, or 5 healthy cards in hand, I would imagine he does decide to channel that rune, and it should come in exhausted. Maybe foregoing and decides on the double draw in A. So he does value the draw in this position.
Okay, fair enough. Decides he wants more cards, and I can always respect more cards.
Right.
As a TCG player, one of my favorite things to do is draw cards, even if I lose because of it.
Yeah, I think you and 90+% of people watching at home can agree with that. Throwing it back to Sivir, you have low might units, 2 might units, Sea Monkey and Traveling Merchant, but Minefield is completely open and Lucian's completely tapped, so that is indeed going to be a free conqueror. I would just probably bet you're going to be sending in, but ooh, taking advantage that Lucian is completely tapped, being aggressive with the punch first. And wait a second, this is some insanity kind of luck. No, is that does that 2 punch first within the first maybe 10 something cards?
Is that like, I think that's the 5th punch first this match, right?
Yeah, it really is. It's almost like he's a magnet to those punch first.
And getting the draw because his little guy is mighty. Not too often you see a mighty sea monkey, is it?
Yeah, not not often at all, and it did take down a Kiana, so now Lucian's the only threat in the back line. Does get up to that even 4 point because you were able to conquer that Sunken Temple. Sivir wasn't tapped just yet, hasn't used the power. Actually, you did use the power, which actually was what developed that gold token we're seeing there in base. But now I think Lucia's mad. He's saying like, wait a minute, you took down my Kaiser, you took down my Kiana. I'm going to make you pay for it. I know you have 4 runes at the ready, 4 cards available to you, but let me try to figure out a way to at least kill these low might units because they don't seem too threatening. But maybe something like a Rebuke or another Fight or Flight might make it very difficult for Lucian to push in.
At least he doesn't have to be afraid of another punch first.
Right. That is indeed a saving grace, because we'll check in the discard while he makes his play. That's 1, that's 2. So as you said, 5 punch first in this game, best of 3 series so far.
You could even call it 6, right? Because didn't Fizz play one as well?
Yeah, I think so. I believe. Yeah, he did. He actually did. So there was a really 4 punch first in game 1. No wonder Sivir ended up taking that one.
Yeah, is it a Sivir deck or is it a punch first deck?
Right. I mean, any body deck should be a punch first deck, but fully making great use of that card as we saw in game 1. So now it's time for Lucian to reciprocate something back, and it's gonna be the Bryn here Thunder Song coming out. So if he did have any kind of actions, you're not gonna be able to play him out since there is champion still available in that champion zone, so Sivir can come down for an accelerated cost. But I don't know how worth it that's going to be, because you're not going to be able to protect her very, very effectively. So maybe just develop your base a little bit more. It does feel bad that you're not going to get that even point, but you are at least ahead on points. I say that, but we saw in game 1, it was 7-1. So you can never count out Lucian, no matter the big difference in point margin.
Yeah, you are right. I probably wouldn't try and go even here, as it does end up putting you in a spot where, oh, this works. Yeah, you can just fight or flight the merchant and then push it up. So, yep, okay, never mind. We can go even, and it's pretty safe.
Yeah, you don't feel too bad about losing a traveling merchant. You do get to filter through a little bit more cards with that merchant's ability. When you move, discard, draw one. So discarding a little bit more. And you know, the discard package is what's making the Sivir deck so strong. As we saw Rasa come down in that round 1, as we saw in the Swiss rounds, I believe there was like 3 Rasas played out in a single game. And speaking of the devil, here he comes. Recycles a rune. Rasa, the sun, or we'll call it the Sundra coming down, hitting the base, trying to make an impact going forward on this next turn.
Yeah, it does have the Rasa in base and still has the Sivir available for next turn, so there is a potential push. Opting to use the Sabotage here to set up next turn. And what do we see? I mean, there's not really anything stopping a potential push next turn besides loading a battlefield, which obviously could be an option with a with quite a few powerful units there. The Yone, the Wallop this does make sense though, hitting the Wallop. Otherwise, it does open you up to play Yone, play Wallop, attach to Yone, and then you do end up killing the Rasa in the backline. The Wallop should be on the bottom of the deck, I believe, but doesn't look like this Lucian deck draws enough to be able to see it anyway, so shouldn't matter.
Right, I would almost be a little bit scared of that longsword as well, just because it could come at a reaction speed with that quick draw mechanic. But I think Wallop was a good pick. You don't get to ready anything to try to pack on a battlefield to try to defend, because right now Sivir's at 6, might not be holding to 7 as we're seeing Lucian push in. Even if there is a rebuke, you still have the Thunder Song in the back, able to push in. And you can't really do a punch first because that gold token is exhausted. So you know, at the very least, those 2 last remaining cards from Sivir isn't going to be making too much of an impact going forward. So as we saw in game 1, there was a point that the tide started turning. Is this point right here, right now, where you kind of start to stabilize as the Lucian player and try to climb your way back up and end up closing things out. Or not closing things out, evening things out, and maybe bringing us to a game 3. But let's see, because he does get the conquer, so up to 3. But now do you push the minefield? I would imagine so, right? Because you have the champion to accelerate, so I'd be kind of worried that they would conquer 2 battlefields in one go.
I actually don't hate not going for the minefield, as at least from what we've seen, he doesn't really have any tricks in his hand as Lucian, and if you spread yourself too thin across the battlefields, you open yourself up to like a rebuke just freeing one battlefield entirely.
Okay.
And then you can just go like accelerate Sivir, shove up Rasa. I don't hate, and it kind of depends what he drew off of his 2 draws, right? But I would not hate loading one battlefield and saying like, you don't have a way to out this immediately, and then I can set up for my next turn for a push. But I guess, yeah, see, that looks like what he is going to do. So
Yeah, taking your advice, and packing up the Sunken Temple with Thundersong and Ruin Runner, so you're not going to be able to fight or flight or rebuke this Ruin Runner, so trying to make it a little bit more formidable with that Dorian's Blade coming in up to 7 total might. Raza is a powerful unit, but not so powerful to get over both of these units in one. You're going to have to take a little bit more strength. We saw 2 punch first already out the window. I even think a third one might not be enough, because you're going up to just plus 11 might. There's currently 7 plus the 5. That's going to be 12 total might on Sunken Tempo. So one might short from conquering, and of course that's just going to be conquering one of the battlefields on your turn. You still got to worry about the other one. So this might be a tricky position for the Sivir player.
Do have to remember the Sivir champion unit is available, so we do have a 6 might accelerate available, so 12 total might on board. Obviously 3 cards in hand. Could see the third punch first, which would be hilarious. But still a lot of other options. Choosing to use the sabotage last turn means maybe that they did have a few options in hand, as they opted to use it early with the knowledge that they were able to set up. But I feel like it ended up being a pretty good call, because I think they might have lost the game on the spot to Wallop Yone. So, another sabotage. All right.
Yeah, playing out another sabotage, seeing what's under the hood. So a couple longswords, a couple hex drinkers, a Yone and a Kiana. So at the minimum, a longsword can come down and protect one of these units on Sunken Tempo. So you're definitely not conquering. I think you're going for the good old game plan. Try to hold the minefields. Is it gonna pay off? Which one? What does it look like, or what does it do? I'll tell you.
The punch first. The punch first.
Okay,
the third
right,
punch first.
Right.
Rebuke, third punch first. Oh my gosh.
It was the rebuke coming down, changing this course of battle. Lucian putting everything on red, putting everything on this Lucian champion, but not getting paid out. The Rasa and the Sivir player going to be holding the minefield, going from 7 to 8, and our undefeated Lucian player in our Swiss rounds just got taken out in a 2-0 fashion. Who would have thought? Not me.
Yeah, that is... what a way to go out. This rebuke card really has... came into the meta kind of swinging, right? Like, it was seeing play mostly in just Annie last set. But now with the advent of all this gold generation, this card is really powerful and seen a lot of play.